I've played Dungeons & Dragons for many years, and over time I've grown deeply attached to the amazing characters born from those wild sessions. This story isn't based on our campaigns directly. Instead, it's a twisted, reimagined tale inspired by those beloved characters. This isn't a book, at least not yet. Instead, I've chosen to tell this story through YouTube videos, bringing these chaotic, heartfelt, and sometimes horrifying moments to life in a new way. As someone who's dyslexic, storytelling hasn't always been easy, but it's something I've grown to love. I hope this project will inspire other dyslexic creators to bring their worlds to life too. And maybe, just maybe, one of us will write the next Shakespeare-level epic, and torture a whole generation of high school students with it in their exams. Most of all, I hope you grow to love these characters like we did, because this world is meant to be shared. Welcome to the Twisted Machinations of a God. Book 1, Vanity. Prologue. Every grand tale has its genesis, but not all beginnings are gentle whispers of destiny. Some stories are born in shadows, their first breaths laced with dread, their tendrils coiling around the fragile threads of reality. It is not merely the turning of fate's wheel, nor the quaint notion of a butterfly's wings stirring distant storms. No, the origins of my true legend are far more sinister, a convergence of malice and despair, a wound torn into the fabric of existence itself. Beneath the veil of metaphor lies a truth so dark it festers, its echoes not ripples, but jagged fissures that stretch through time. This legend begins in an age long before your pitiful existence was even a stain on your ancestors' loins. A time when I walked this wretched world, my deeds misnamed as holy, my purpose twisted by fools too blind to see the truth. Peace and prosperity, they whisper? Ha! That's the lie they clung to while choking on the ashes of their own failure. I was the light in the darkness, the fire meant to cleanse. But they feared me. They misunderstood me. They betrayed me. So now you will sit, you sniveling little creatures, and you will listen. Not because I want your pity or understanding. No, I care nothing for such fragile notions. But because this is my story, my phoenix rebirth from the ashes of the world. And if you think it's some tale of valor or redemption, you're a greater fool than the rest. In the time when the land bled freely under the weight of ancient, malevolent magic, deep beneath the fractured earth, where light was a forgotten myth, lay a ruin that had once been a proud dwarven fortress. Now it was little more than a festering ossuary of shattered stone and splintered bone. The echoes of its former glory had been devoured by the unrelenting maw of time and violence. The cavern where this story crawls forth was a cruel and unholy womb, birthing despair. The air clung to the skin like the cold breath of a corpse, rancid with the stench of rot and old blood. The walls wept viscous streams of blackened water, thick as bile, their dripping a mockery of life's heartbeat, a grim metronome, counting down to oblivion. Stalactites jutted from the ceiling like the jagged teeth of some monstrous predator, their glistening edges thirsting for fresh flesh. The ground squelched underfoot, a sodden mire of decomposing moss, bloated fungus, and the unidentifiable remnants of the unfortunate. Gabi, a small sneaky goblin, with skin the color of putrid swamp water, shuffled through the cavern with the careful, deliberate steps of a creature that had spent its entire life skirting death. Barely 4 feet tall, Gabi moved with the precision of a predator. His crooked spine hunched over, as if he were trying to make himself smaller, although in truth, he didn't need to. His skin, mottled with dirt and battle scars, was sickly green, the kind of green that spoke of pestilence and filth. His face, twisted into a permanent sneer, was dominated by a set of sharp, uneven teeth, yellowed from years of gnawing on the bones of his victims. His mismatched eyes, one a sharp, almost luminescent emerald green, and the other a cloudy, mud-brown orb that seemed to hold only shadows flicked back and forth, ever watchful. Every sound, no matter how faint, was a threat. Every shift in the shadows was a potential enemy. His ears, one spiked and adorned with a crude metal ring, the other gnawed down to a ragged stump, twitched with each dripping sound that echoed through the hollow chamber. But the most striking feature of the goblin was his left arm, a magical construct of twisted metal and dark enchantments. The arm shimmered faintly in the dim light, its blackened steel covered in intricate runes that pulsed with a dull, malevolent glow. It was not a mere limb, it was a weapon, a cruel, shape-shifting extension of Gabi's will. Blades, hooks, barbs, whatever monstrosity he could envision, it could become. And it had tasted death countless times, feasting on the lives of those who had the misfortune of crossing his path. At his feet lay the broken body of a dwarf, slumped like discarded refuse against a crumbling stone pillar. The corpse was a mockery of its former glory. A once proud beard now matted with blood and filth, armor tarnished and rent asunder, crusted with the filth of prolonged decay. The dwarf's wide-open eyes still held the remnants of his last moments, shock frozen into an expression of eternal dread. The blood pooling beneath him had turned dark and viscous, congealing in sticky rivulets that snaked through the jagged cracks of the stone floor like insidious veins. Arrows protruded grotesquely from the lifeless form, their shafts long stained with dried gore. The fletching was tattered and ragged, chewed by vermin and time alike. Gabi paid it no mind. Death was no stranger to him, and this dwarf was just another forgotten soul in the endless tapestry of carnage. With the indifference of a scavenger, he crouched low, his twisted grin stretching across his face like a gash as he rifled through the corpse's possessions. His spindly fingers moved with expert precision, prying at the worn leather belt until a small pouch dangled loose. A wet squelch accompanied its release, and Gabi cackled softly as he upended the pouch's contents into his palm. A handful of gold coins spilled out, their once lustrous surfaces dulled by grime, but it wasn't the coins that drew his attention. Among the trinkets glinted a key, its cold iron surface etched with ancient dwarven runes. It radiated a strange, oppressive energy that made even Gabi hesitate for a moment. "Ah, there y'are," he rasped, his voice scraping the cavern's silence like a rusted blade. "Bet you had something special tucked away, eh, Beardy?" The iron key, ancient and scarred, had a jagged shape that seemed more suited for a ceremonial relic than any modern lock, a testament to the dwarfs who once ruled these mountains with their obsessive craftsmanship. Gabi chuckled, the sound low and guttural, like gravel grinding against stone. He tucked the key into a tattered pouch at his hip, his crooked grin widening as he reached for more spoils. His clawed fingers skimmed over a comb lying near the dwarf's stiffened hand. The leather cover, cracked and flaking, seemed to whisper secrets long forgotten. But as soon as he touched it, the brittle pages crumbled into ash, scattering like dry leaves caught in a bitter wind. "Stingy bastard," he growled, his sharp teeth bared in annoyance. With a flick of his wrist, he sent the remnants of the book spiraling to the filthy floor. Even in death, these dwarves can't spare a crumb. Before he could rifle further through the corpse's possessions, the oppressive silence of the cavern was abruptly shattered by a sharp, exasperated voice. "Ow, my foot!" The shout ricocheted off the damp walls, thick with irritation and unmissable derision. "You dropped your bloody gun on it again. Tweak, you useless scrap heap." Gabi spun, his glowing green eye narrowing as the sound echoed closer. From the shadows emerged a figure that practically crackled with unbridled energy. Feyre, an Aasimar whose celestial heritage was worn as mockery rather than pride, strode into the flickering torchlight. Her fiery blonde hair tumbled in loose waves over her shoulders, glowing like molten gold against the dim, sour air of the cavern. Feyre moved with the swagger of someone who had long since traded any notions of divine duty for mischief and mayhem. Her armor, more ornamental than practical, hugged her body with flattering precision, its golden embellishments shimmering faintly in the murk. But the intricate filigree and celestial motifs only served as ironic contrast to her roguish grin and the predatory gleam in her dark eyes. She was as likely to save your life as to stick a dagger between your ribs, depending on her mood. She rubbed her foot with exaggerated annoyance, scowling over her shoulder at the lumbering, mechanical monstrosity behind her. "You drop that damn thing on me one more time, Tweak, and I swear by whatever gods are left, I'll sell you for scrap." "Apologies, recalibrating," droned Tweak the hulking warforged. His metallic voice was devoid of emotion, though there was a faint crackle in his tone, as if even his apology was running on corrupted software. His brass and iron body clanked with every step, a cacophony of grinding gears and hissing steam. Twin pistons on his legs hissed in rhythm with his movements, while his mechanical eyes, cold and faintly glowing red, flickered as they scanned the cavern. Tweak was a patchwork abomination, cobbled together from scavenged dwarven machinery and the manic genius of whoever had created him. Strapped to his back was the crowning jewel of his madness, a steam-powered bazooka so absurdly large it seemed ready to topple him with every step. It belched out thin clouds of steam at irregular intervals, the pipes groaning under the pressure of unstable engineering. The weapon's crude construction made it seem as if it could explode just as easily as it could fire, and judging by Feyre's exasperation, it had likely done both before. Gabi's twisted grin faded into an annoyed sneer. The pair had ruined the ambiance, their presence a stark insult to the deathly quiet he so enjoyed. He hissed under his breath, pressing himself against the shadows as Feyre lit a torch, the sudden flame sending wild, flickering light dancing across the cavern walls. "If you drop that thing on me again," Feyre warned, her tone venomous, "I'll personally melt you down into coins and toss you into the nearest abyss." "Threat acknowledged," Tweak replied, unbothered as a hiss of steam punctuated his words. His head swiveled with an audible click, the glow of his eyes intensifying as he scanned the room. Current environment, unstable, potential hostile presence detected. Feyre rolled her eyes. "Oh, spare me. The only thing hostile here is my patience, and it's wearing thin." But Gabi knew better. A low, predatory grin returned to his face as he watched them from the shadows. His metal arm twitched in anticipation, the runes pulsing like a heartbeat. Feyre and her clanking companion had no idea what lay waiting for them in the dark. Their argument was interrupted by the high, nasally voice of a third figure, breaking the cavern's tension like a rusty hinge squealing in protest. "Must you two take this so lightly?" Geralt's voice piped up, shrill and laden with irritation. It echoed off the walls in a way that was more grating than intimidating. The kind of tone that could make even the most patient saint want to strangle the source. Geralt stepped into the flickering torchlight, his dark, intricately wrought armor clinking as he moved. He certainly looked the part of a brooding warrior, with his raven-black hair and sharp, pale features that seemed chiseled out of stone. His eyes glimmered with a self-important intensity, and his armor gleamed like he spent more time polishing it than wearing it into battle. But the effect was undercut the moment he opened his mouth again. "I mean honestly," Geralt continued, his voice rising half an octave as he gestured grandly toward Feyre and Tweak. "How are we supposed to complete this mission if you're just bickering all the time? It's unprofessional." Gabi, lurking in the shadows, snorted loudly, his jagged teeth glinting as he grinned. "Oh, listen to Ol Squeaks here," he muttered under his breath, loud enough for everyone to hear. Real beacon of leadership, that one. Geralt either didn't hear the jab or chose to ignore it, which seemed unlikely given his usual flair for melodrama. With an air of self-proclaimed authority, he swept past Feyre and Tweak. Clearly determined to take charge. "We have a mission to complete," he declared, his voice cracking slightly as he attempted a dramatic flourish. As if to punctuate the absurdity of his statement, Geralt's next step landed squarely on a pressure plate. Click, the trap activated with a savagery that could only be described as gleeful malice. Jagged spikes shot up from the ground with a metallic shunk, their edges caked in rust and the lingering grime of previous victims. Gabi, always the quickest in both reflexes and apathy, leapt to the side with a sharp, gleeful cackle, disappearing into the shadows like the predator he was. Feyre spun gracefully, her armor clinking as she rolled to safety, the edges of the spikes scraping harmlessly against the holy glow of her shield. Tweak, mid-reboot, remained frozen, the spikes hissing inches past his unmoving metal frame, their tips sparking harmlessly against his brass plating. Geralt, however, bore the full brunt of the track. The first spike ripped through his thigh with a sickening crunch of metal piercing flesh, tearing apart muscle as blood sprayed in a wide arc across the stone floor. "Yeow!" he shrieked, his voice cracking as he tried to stagger backward, his boot catching on another pressure plate. The second trap sprung to life immediately. A gout of flame roared upward from the floor, engulfing him in a searing pillar of fire. His robes ignited instantly, the flames licking hungrily at his flesh as the smell of charred hair and burning fabric filled the air. "Ah! Hot, hot, hot!" Geralt screamed, flailing uselessly as his skin blistered and cracked under the relentless heat. Desperate to escape, he stumbled blindly to the side, right into the path of a swinging pendulum blade. The rusted metal cleaved into his shoulder with a wet thunk, splitting flesh and sinew as it knocked him to the ground. Blood poured freely from the jagged wound, pooling beneath him in sticky, glistening streams. By the time the traps had stopped, Geralt lay sprawled on the ground, his body a patchwork of seared flesh, torn robes, and gaping wounds. His thigh gushed blood in a steady pulse, the spike still embedded in the meat of his leg. His shoulder hung at an unnatural angle, the joint half dislocated, and the flesh around it shredded. His face was a grim tableau of burns and soot, his eyes fluttering weakly as he whimpered, I'm dying." "You're not dying," Feyre muttered, as she deflected a stray spike with a flash of holy light, her tone thick with irritation. "You're just bleeding a lot. Maybe stop stepping on traps, genius." Geralt let out a feeble groan, barely lifting his head as blood trickled from his mouth. "Why does everything hate me?" From the shadows, Gabi emerged, his glowing green eye glinting with malicious amusement. He crouched beside the mangled Geralt, inspecting the carnage with the air of a connoisseur appraising a fine painting. "Safety standards?" he drawled, his voice dripping with mockery. "Oh, that's what this place needs. Some nice little signs, maybe a handrail or two. Really would have saved your sorry arse, wouldn't it?" Geralt coughed weakly, flecks of blood spraying from his lips as he tried to glare at Gabi. "This isn't my fault," he squeaked, his voice rising to a pathetic whine. "If you'd warned me—" "Warned ya?" Gabi interrupted with a sharp rasping laugh. "Mate, if I had a copper from every time I saved your hide, I'd buy me own fortress and fill it with spikes, just to see what other dumb ways you'd get skewered." "Can we not do this now?" Feyre interjected, crouching beside Geralt to inspect the damage. She wrinkled her nose as she peeled back a shred of his scorched robe, revealing the charred, oozing flesh beneath. "Ugh, this is disgusting. Honestly, should we even bother patching him up? He's basically dead weight." "Damage assessment, severe." Tweak droned, stepping closer as his mechanical eyes scanned Geralt's broken body. "Probability of survival without intervention, 0%. "See? 0%. Geralt whimpered, clutching weakly at Feyre's arm with his bloodied hand. "You can't just leave me here. You're supposed to be heroes." "Heroes?" Feyre snorted, yanking her arm away and wiping Geralt's blood off on the hem of her cloak. "You're lucky I don't put you out of your misery right now." Gabi leaned back on his haunches, his grin wide and toothy as he rummaged through one of his pouches. "Much as I'd love to see Squeaks here kick it, Merlin wouldn't be too happy if we let him bleed out like a stuck pig. Bad for the group's morale, you know?" He pulled out a small vial, the healing potion's faint green glow illuminating his scarred, sickly features. Geralt's eyes widened with hope, his trembling hands reaching for the vial. "Thank you, Gabi, I knew you cared." "Hold your horses, mate," Gabi interrupted, holding the potion just out of reach. His grin sharpened, wicked and cruel. "You'll drink it, but not 'cause I care. This is for Merlin, 'cause if it were up to me, I'd let your dumb arse rot right here." Gabi dropped the vial into Geralt's trembling hands with all the ceremony of tossing scraps to a starving dog. The battered man clutched it like salvation, his blood-slick fingers fumbling with the stopper before finally yanking it free with his teeth. He didn't hesitate, he couldn't afford to. The potion sloshed down his throat in a single desperate gulp. Feyre folded her arms and muttered. Natural selection really missed its shot there. The transformation was immediate and ugly. Geralt convulsed violently as the potion surged through his veins, the alchemical magic reacting like fire meeting oil. His body seized, arching off the blood-slick floor as his muscles knotted and stretched beneath his charred skin. The torn flesh around the embedded spike in his thigh began to ripple as if something alive slithered beneath it. The spike didn't ease its way out. It exploded from the wound with a wet snap, clattering across the stones, trailing sinew and gore behind it. Flesh surged inward like a closing maw, threads of meat reweaving in unnatural patterns, slick and steaming. New tissue grew over charred muscle with terrifying speed, knitting together in twitching spasms, accompanied by the sharp stink of ozone and burning hair. His broken shoulder snapped audibly back into socket, bone grinding bone as ligaments reattached with brutal efficiency. blisters shriveled, scabs forming in their place before being sloughed off by freshly birthed skin. Pale and raw like something freshly peeled. The burns faded, replaced by patches of shiny, tight flesh, a grotesque imitation of normalcy. Geralt's screams were constant, not from pain alone, but from the overwhelming sensation of his body remaking itself at a speed it was never meant to endure. His veins glowed faintly with the potion's residual magic, like fireflies dancing beneath his skin. His back arched one last time before he collapsed in a twitching heap, gasping raggedly as steam rose from his body. He was alive, barely. But the healing was not without cost, and it had left its fingerprints all over him. A pink, angry scar traced up his thigh like a lightning bolt. His left eye twitched involuntarily, a side effect of nerve regeneration gone slightly awry. And the new skin on his shoulder? It shimmered faintly, almost metallic, a residue of goblin alchemy and divine negligence. Gabi crouched beside him, grinning with wicked satisfaction. "See? Told you it'd work. Might twitch a bit when it rains, though." As Geralt's breathing steadied, Gabi stood, brushing himself off with a theatrical sigh. "Right then. Now that you're patched up, how about we all agree to stop stepping on bloody traps? Or don't. Makes no difference to me." Geralt glared weakly, his dignity as shredded as his robes. "I'll remember this, Gabi." "Oh, I hope so," Gabi replied with a grin, already fading back into the shadows. "Gonna be laughing about it for days."